Well, the fireworks started early on July 4th as LSU has landed another big time commitment. My name is Bryce Koon here with the Go 24/7 reaction as the Tigers land 2025 defensive lineman Zion Williams. And yeah, that's a guy that I think folks across the state are going to be able to remember that name and keep a pretty good eye out on it. But hey, we're going to react. We hope you're having a great July 4th. We're going to react to the big news. Zion Williams commits to LSU. So we start off with this right here. Who is Zion Williams? Now, let's take a look at who Zion Williams is, the three-star per 24/7 Sports, a top 100 player in the defensive line position per 24/7 Sports composite ranking. They've got him as a top 300 player and a four-star overall. Had several crystal ball predictions, including one for myself and coworker Sonny Ship heading into this decision date. But 6'4", 295, pushing that 300 pound marker. This is a big win for Bo Davis and this LSU, defensive line unit, and just in general in this 2025 class that desperately needed a lot of help along the defensive line and just on the defensive side of the football as well. The Lufkin, Texas native, had flirted with a couple other schools, choosing LSU over A&M, Arkansas, TCU, and there's a couple more as well. But, 24/7 sports analyst Gabe Brooks did a really good job of kind of breaking down his game when he saw him this past July. Kind of the updated scouting report was larger interior defensive line presence who could potentially serve as an anchor in the middle of multiple fronts. That's really, really good news for what LSU wants and LSU needs kind of going forward, as they need to start to stack some really good defensive linemen in the 2025 and 2026 classes. It's a power-based prospect who shows impressive play, strength with the pads on, capable of taking or cleaving double teams at the high school level, also flashes stack and shed ability on one-on-ones. That's something else that I think Bo Davis really likes about what he can bring to the table, his ability to win one-on-ones. We're going to take a look at the film here in a little bit that kind of showcases that. He said fits the mold of a traditional nose whose impact is felt more in the run game than as a pass rusher, but does show some closing juice on the line relative to his size. Has good get-off, snap anticipation, also a track star, throws shot put, and has been pretty well at that too. Here's kind of the I guess you could say the concern, and this is something that once you get him into the building, if he does sign with LSU, that you hope Bo Davis can kind of work towards and correct. Gabe says he sometimes tends to stand up at the snap and can play upright at times. I think that's a prime example of a guy who is probably just better on the field than everyone else he's playing against, and sometimes, understands that 100% constantly right now is not necessarily what he has to do. In the SEC at LSU, that's what you have to do to be a regular contributor baseline, not even a star. You have to do that to be a regular contributor. The relative scarcity of interior D linemen of this physical archetype probably drives up his value as a prospect, Gabe Brooks says. And look, we know that. The scarcity that you see in the transfer portal, the scarcity of guys that are in this 2025 class that can be difference makers, are going to drive up that perceived value and probably drive them up recruiting rankings. And look, I think that, Williams is a guy that is going to see a nice little boost, especially on our 24/7 side of things, as his senior season gets underway. Gabe kind of finishes it out saying projects to the power four level as a potentially multi-year starter who owns physical tools that provide even longer term upside. We also talk about the fact that he, competes in track and field. He was a nice, had some pretty not good numbers in that as well, in the discus and the shot put. Take a look at his stats from 2023 to 2022. His breakout year, when he's really started to kind of pop off into the recruiting market, was in 2022, a sophomore year, where he had 31 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks from an interior position. Last season kind of continued to build upon that, 37 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and another 3 sacks as well. So, when Gabe talks about what he brings to the table, we're going to look at the film here in just a second. I think this is a very, very understanding ability of a guy that can make an impact in the run game with a potential opportunity to develop as a pass rusher from in between the tackles. This tells me that it's a good potential plug and play guy that you can bring in, and you start to stack a couple of these, and the fan base, and but more importantly, the folks in that room in that LSU football building are going to feel a little bit more comfortable kind of heading into 2025 cycle, 2026 cycle about where the roster from a depth perspective starts to sit. We all know it's been much talk about where that isn't and how they had to kind of get a little desperate towards the end of the transfer portal season, in filling out the roster in that interior defensive line position. But you have some guys in the 2025 class, McKinley, Ahmad Bro. You could really start to see if they can get this and a couple other names that we're going to get to as well later on in the show. If they can get that, you start to feel really, really good about what's going on. So that's exciting. That's kind of who Zion Williams is. The Lufkin, Texas native makes his announcement on Friday or on Thursday, July 4th, and that's a big, big task and a big win there for Bo Davis and LSU. Now for what a lot of people like, and I've gotten a lot of good reviews on this, so we're going to take a look at it. We're taking a look at the tape. Who is Zion Williams on the field? Well, let's take a look right here. You can see, and you're going to be able to see, that this is a guy who creates chaos from the interior. You talk about pass rush, violent with the offensive line. You can tell that he's probably the best player on the field, but he plays like it. Does a good job of kind of setting the tone in the middle of the field. And I think that's something that when Bo Davis and this staff looked at what they wanted and what they needed from just really from a perspective of depth and just having a disruptor, Zion fits that mold. Now, there's obviously an opportunity to grow. We talked about how Gabe mentioned, he's a guy that can stand up at times. I think that is something that can easily be coached out once you get to the college level if the dedication is there. And Zion Williams, all signs point to him, that dedication factor being there. But you can see continuously lining up over the center at that nose position and just a disruptor. Even when he's not the guy that's making the play, he's a guy that is going to be able to disrupt it and allow the stars, allow the guys, allow the linebackers to be able to get those tackles. And, that's something that LSU struggled with in 2023. They could potentially struggle with again in 2024. You can't make that a 3-year problem. That's why you bring in a guy like Zion Williamson. Now, look, he can make his fair share of plays anyways. But, I was talking about this the other day with somebody. This is a guy that his value is going to extend beyond the sheet, beyond the box score, because of what his ability and his play can do for the people around him. Look, nose tackle, interior defensive line has become more of a hot commodity, especially at the NFL. At the pro level, when you start to see the pass rush from guys. I mean, look, we just had one of the all-time greats retire from professional football, and Aaron Donald. There's a lot of other long list of guys that have made an impact and made a lot of money doing that. The stats are nice, but a lot of people talk about what they can do for the players around them. So really like what Williams brings to the table here. I mean, he's a guy that, like we said, he can disrupt, he can cause confusion, and you just see a couple plays, works through the double team and able just to kind of swallow up the ball carrier. LSU needs a guy like that. So for him to be able to show this, kind of at a raw level, at the high school level, once he gets into, the weight training program, once he gets, to a good 295, a good 300, a good 285 in that range, that's where you start to see kind of the maturation from high school star to consistent SEC contributor. So I like what Zion Williams brings to the table. I love his game. I love what he can bring, obviously, as you continue to watch some of these highlights. I love this one right here, too. This is obviously a potentially goal line stand, completely fights off the offensive lineman, almost one hand, and then able to really kind of on the ball carrier. And like you saw right there, able to stop the play. So that's kind of the tape on Zion Williams. Love what he brings. Love what he is going to be in addition to this class. You got to sign him. So it kind of brings us to, what is next for this LSU 2025 class. Now, when we take a look at what could happen here, and we take a look at potential commits, we take a look at how this class is shaping out, LSU desperately needed somebody on the defensive side of the football, and especially on the defensive line. I like the pickup of Zion Williams, but I think that there's more to be had. We obviously saw Jesse Harold recently. We've seen a couple other guys be interested. Everyone's eyes are going to be on Damian Shanklin on July the 5th. Obviously, Brandon Brown is another guy. If you could pair those guys together, you could pair Damian Shanklin along with Jesse Harold. You start to see the foundation on the defensive side of the football really start to build in this 2025 class. The offense, it's a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, you'd like to get a couple more receivers. it's LSU. You feel like you're going to be able to do that. Offensive line, nobody's really worried about what Brad Davis does. But here's a chance for Bo Davis and this defensive staff to go out, continue to add talent, and then get them on campus and coach them up. That's what kind of a lot of people feel like Bo Davis is better at, getting the guys in the building and developing them into multi-year SEC level starters and potential, day one, day two draft picks. A lot of exciting stuff and a good reason for you to stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the video. If you're listening in podcast form, maybe you're headed to a cookout, maybe you're enjoying the holiday. We hope you enjoy the holiday weekend. Be safe. We're going to catch you on the Go 24/7 forums. Great information over there for myself, Glenn West, and Sonny Ship. And we will catch you next time as Zion Williams makes his decision. Commitment number one of the weekend. Will there be more? A good reason for you to stay tuned as we continue to talk LSU football in this 2025 recruiting cycle.